Have you ever wondered if you're on the path to health or on the path to disease? Do you ever wonder if you're going to fall prey to cancer, heart disease, or dementia like your parents or your grandparents might have? I'm Penny, and today I'm going to be starting a new series with Dr. Chip Whitney, and it's called The Thieves of Health. So, hello, Dr. Whitney.
Hello, how are you doing today?
I am really good. I'm really looking forward to hearing about what the thieves of health are. I know I can just off the top of my mind think fitness, but the way that it's put, it's really intrigued me. So can you tell us what the thieves, like what this concept actually means?
As I've said several times, health is not just the absence of disease, it's a state of being that allows you to thrive as we get older. And when we think about disease, it scares people to think about their family history of cancer, heart disease, or dementia. But they aren't just random occurrences. There is a series of events that happens for years, likely decades, before the body breaks down and those disease begins to form. So what we're going to talk about in this series is the thieves of health, those things that steal our health, sometimes unknowingly. Sometimes a burglar is ransacking your house and you don't even realize it if you're not home. So in this case, sometimes a lot of these thieves that ultimately lead to those breakdown diseases like cancer, heart disease, and dementia are going completely unknowingly to us. So we're going to walk through all the different root causes of disease that lead into the disease over the course of time. I like to call them the engines of disease. The car analogy, where the engine is silently running, moving, and eventually causes the body to break down.
Wow. I like the way you've put that. It makes it a lot easier to understand, especially when you're not used to, sometimes you can be in an appointment or you get results back from a test and you're just like, what does this actually mean? I don't have a clue if I'm good or not. But yeah, I really like the way that you've put that. So what root cause are we going to be speaking about today?
So what I want to do today is I want to, like you said, sometimes these medical topics are really hard to understand. So in very simplistic, easy to understand terms, I want to understand kind of the mysterious concept of toxicity. So people a lot of time have heard about toxins or toxicity or detoxification. And it sounds like a very confusing topic that you don't hear a lot about in kind of mainstream health type talk. But I'm telling you, it is really one of the more important ones that we really should address, and is really not that difficult with some basic steps of what people can walk away with.
Brilliant. It's always good to hear that there's an easy way to spot it or look after ourselves. So I'm really encouraged by this. So why is it important for us to know about this?
Over the course of time, that again, years or decades, that the toxicities of life. And what I mean by toxicities is dirty air, dirty water, dirty food. We're all exposed to them every day. I mean, it's just a part of living from the beginning of human existence to today, that we're exposed to things that are, think of the poisons of life that we're exposed to and our body has to get rid of. So the pollution in the air, the pesticides in the food that we eat, the impurities in the water that we drink, and just normal metabolism. I mean, everyday creation of energy and the activities that we do, there's byproduct, there's pollution. Just like even in a very clean vehicle, there's typically some pollution that's emitted, and we have to be able to process that pollution that just normal everyday metabolism creates.
You
So
don't
we've got,
realize that our body's doing this all the time.
yeah.
Because we don't see the effect or feel the effect, especially people that, younger people, or it's not something that we're aware that our body's actually working on.
So, I mean, so we're exposed to these things all the time, and we have to find ways to get rid of them. So that's what I'm talking about. And over the course, you ask why it's important. Well, the more we're exposed to, or the less we can get rid of, which is the two concepts we're going to put, the imports that come into our life and our ability to get rid of them, exporting them, the more we're exposed to, the more we're going to be at risk of diseases. Cancer is the one. I mean, it contributes to dementia, it contributes to heart attack and strokes. The easier one to understand is cancer. That we've all heard of carcinogens like cigarette smoke is a carcinogen. We know that it contributes to disease. Glyphosate, that in a lot of the pesticides or other chemicals in the pesticides, they're poisons. Other things that we're exposed to, radon. We know that there's specific poisons, but there's lots of them out there that are unnamed or we've heard of over the course of time. I remember back when I was growing up, saccharin and sweeteners was thought to be, but then there was like the debate: is that a carcinogen? Is it not? Well, the answer it is. It may not be as potent of one as some of the others are, but we have to get rid of these things because over the course of time they hammer on the arteries, they hammer on the brain, they hammer on the organs, and over the course of time can cause breakdown. So the more effective, the more we can reduce our exposures, and the more we can get rid of them when we are inevitably exposed to them, the less risk we have of disease. And quite frankly, I think it's a big part of healthy aging. I mean, I think that the people who age more slowly are the ones who are either processing the poisons of life better, or they're lessening their exposure to them.
Avoiding some of them as well, the ones that we can.
Yeah, we can't avoid everything. It's inevitable that we're going to be exposed to things, but certainly there are ways we can avoid them.
If there are probably people listening to this that are just kind of like, wow, this isn't just something I have to sit around and let happen to me, because sometimes we feel powerless when it's something as big as an issue like pollution or water. We can feel like there's not much we can do, but what can we actually begin to do, like to avoid? I know we can't avoid all toxins, but what can we do to be a bit more conscious about trying?
Yeah, well, like I said, dirty air, dirty water, dirty food. If you can avoid those, I mean, dirty air, obviously, depending on where you live, you're going to be much less at risk of pollution if you're out in the middle of Wyoming than if you are in the Philadelphia area where I am right now. Air purifiers, especially if people are prone to allergies, air purifiers are great to help clean your air. Clean water. I mean, water is the best liquid to be drinking, and clean water is, particularly depending on where you live, is really important. It's really easy. You don't have to get a fancy system for your house that can be expensive. Just a simple pitcher of filtered water that you can drink in your house is good. I caution people on the plastics. So if like the water bottles, you got to be a little cautious on that. So I always encourage people, if your water bottle's been baking in the sun, I wouldn't drink that water, because that's the plastic is going to leach into the water that you drink. In general, you're better off having one of those water containers that are more metal based, and that you can carry it around in that keep your water cold, and it keeps the plastic from getting in there. So just minimizing your exposure with filtered water, or and avoiding the impurities in the water. And then food. I mean, I tell people one of the best investments they can make in their health is organic foods, because it's really kind of sad how much our food is contaminated with pesticides these days, and it's the way they keep it preserved, and they keep the bugs from eating it. And unfortunately, those pesticides in the food that's not organic is potentially dangerous in the long haul. So as people are able, really investing some of your health dollars into organic foods can really be a big return on that investment over the long haul, especially if you're prone to things like the dementia. They can play into dementia. If you're prone to a family history of cancer, it really might be a really good investment for you.
Yeah, and I know it can be a little bit daunting when you go. I know for me, I was in Whole Foods and I noticed that unorganic Brussels sprouts were $3 and organic were like $8. But then when you think about the bill you get when you're coming out of a surgery or even an appointment, it's a very it's a very worthwhile.
There is actually, you can see online, you can get lists of them, but the Dirty Dozen foods, or there's a list of foods that have the most pesticides on them. And a lot of them, it's just common sense. Like, it's the sweeter they are and the thinner skins they are, the more the bugs like them, the more pesticides are going to put on. So some of the worst ones are the berries, the raspberries, the strawberries, the blueberries, because they're wonderfully sweet, the bugs love them. So we humans tend to put a lot of pesticides on them,
Yeah.
and you can't, they're thin skinned, so they get absorbed in there easily. And therefore it's really, even just washing them off is not necessarily going to
Doesn't work.
get rid of them. And unfortunately, they do tend to be some of the more expensive ones out there, because they do have to waste a lot of product in order to bring to market what they're able to. So, but if you're on a budget, you can get lists and you can prioritize which ones that you want. So others on the list, I believe, are potatoes are on the list. So the skins of potatoes apples are on the list. Great food a lot of people eat. Spinach is on the list. So yeah, kind of getting to know those things and just kind of setting your priorities. I mean, if you can go with all organic, that absolutely is a huge value, or you can kind of prioritize what you're gonna do.
Yeah, and just knowing this stuff helps, helps us to be able to prepare in advance, especially when we are budgeting. So yeah,
And it's a long haul thing. It's not a quick fix. This is just kind of
yeah.
a lifestyle. This is one of the lifestyles that I think is it's the easiest, actually, just kind of minimizing your exposure, because you kind of set up your process of getting the pitcher, maybe getting an air purifier, getting in the habit of which organic foods you're going to get. Once you've kind of set it into motion, and you do it for months, years, decades, that really is going to pay a big dividend on your return.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Thank you. So what does our body do to actually eliminate some of these toxins that we're exposed to?
So yeah, that is part of being human. And we have the natural detoxification mechanisms. If you want to keep it simple, think of it as you poop it out, you pee it out, and you sweat it out. And then our liver helps to detoxify. So there's 4 main mechanisms that we all get rid of it. So I'll kind of walk you through one at a time.
Yes.
So waste, think of it. I mean, urine and stool, they're waste product. That's, again, 2 of the really main mechanisms of us getting rid of the toxicities of life. So it's really important to have regular bowel movements. If you're prone to constipation, do something about it. I mean, fiber supplements are great. They double as a prebiotic to kind of feed the good bacteria of our intestine, and they help you to kind of have, through that mechanisms, more regular bowel movements. If you have trouble with constipation, that's putting you at risk. And what happens is that the body kind of carries the toxicities through your system, and you poop it out the back end. But if you're constipated, it's like a magnet. It's not like a padlock. It's going to grab right onto it. It's more like a magnet, so that if it hangs in there too long, the toxicities that are binding to bile will actually jump off and recirculate into your system. So regular bowel movements is really important for that. And it's the reason that you hear about drinking lots of clean water is good, because the more that you flush things through your kidneys, the more you're going to get rid of these. So those are 2 huge ways of detoxifying, and relatively simple interventions is not living with the constipation and not waiting. Some people say, oh yeah, I have like a bowel movement once a week, and I do something to kind of get rid of it on day 5 or 6 because I start to feel a little uncomfortable. I mean, it's good to feel more comfortable, but it's also important to keep things moving on a regular basis. So really prioritize that, and talk to your doctor about it if you have difficulty doing so. So again, pooping it out on a regular basis, drinking lots of clean water. I mentioned the liver detoxifying. So it's interesting. And for many years in my career, I didn't really understand. I knew in terms of bile, I'm talking about bile. The liver produces bile, it's stored in the gallbladder. We all think of that, and most people are aware that that's for digesting fat. And it's true, it does help you to digest fat. So if you have a high fat meal, the liver stores the bile in the gallbladder, squirts it out, and you digest that meal. That's fine. But arguably the more important role of the liver gallbladder bile system is that bile is a binder. It's a binder that binds all the toxicities, the poisons of our life, grabs onto those things, and it ushers it out the backside. That's what's holding on to it. And when we're helping people who have toxicity detoxify, you may have heard the term binder, but there are other binders we can artificially take through supplements. But the natural one is bile. So just kind of pushing it through the system on the vial. So the liver really is involved heavily in terms of, that's why we have a liver, is in the detoxification of everything, again, from the external things that we're exposed to the internal things that we produce just through daily living and eating and moving and exercising and working. It helps to get rid of all of those. So yeah, so those are the pooping it out, peeing it out, and the liver detoxifying.
And sweating.
And sweating it out. Yeah, that's the one that, admittedly, and I never understood the importance of it until the last several years, that sweating is a really big way that some people detoxify. I feel kind of embarrassed that for years when people were saying, oh, I do hot yoga and I love hot yoga. You know what hot yoga is? Are you familiar with that?
I haven't done it, but I feel like it's exercise in a sauna.
It is. It's doing yoga where you're exercising in a sauna at hot temperatures. And for years, I was like, I'm really cautioning and dissuading people from doing that, because I was concerned they might get heat injuries. So it's a real possibility if you don't process the heat well enough. But some people just swore by it, say, I feel so good when I do that. Well, they were sweating out the toxicities of life. I have come to believe that some people are just naturally born, genetically driven sweating detoxifiers. So these are the people who love Epsom salt baths, that they just feel great in Epsom salt bath. I had a guy one time who would swim in the ocean in the summertime because he really felt good when he got in a good 45-minute swim. He felt better doing that than he did riding a bicycle or something. And I'm convinced it was the salt that what basically draws it out of the skin and accelerates the process of detoxifying through our skin.
When we spoke last time and you mentioned that some people feel so good after swimming in the sea, I remembered that I'm actually one of those people, and I thought I'm just like a water baby, or I'm just one of these people that love to swim. And since speaking to you, I've actually started having Epsom baths because I was like, do you know what? That makes so much sense, because I'm not necessarily strenuously swimming, but when I used to come out of the sea, I used to feel like I've done 2 hours worth of exercise, that good. And so when you said it, I was like, do you know what? I'm going to have Epsom baths and see if because it really resonated with me.
One little pearl about that one for people who want to do the Epsom salt baths is take a shower afterwards, because what'll happen is if you get it out of your skin, sitting on the surface of your skin, if you don't wash it off with a quick shower afterwards, it'll reabsorb in there and again recirculate. So that's just a little pearl for afterwards. Just take a quick shower just to rinse off when you're done, and that way. And then saunas, far infrared saunas. They actually sell them at not exorbitant prices anymore, where people actually who just feel they love saunas so much they buy it for their home, because that's, again, it's a way of detoxifying and through the skin. So so that's
quite small ones that just look like a tiny tent.
Yeah, there's a kind where you can get like a tiny tent where you kind of sit in there with your tent, or you can get like a small room that you can just kind of set in and where you have some space. So and they're not cheap. It's not the first line to do, but they're not exorbitant. And people who have difficulties with toxicity, it can be a valuable investment for them. And that's actually one thing I want people to know also, is the genetic predisposition that some people have to these things. So as I said, we're all exposed to them. We just can't avoid it in some level. We all would benefit from doing those basic efforts that we just talked about. But one thing that helped to kind of inspire people, and I really believe it might be part of the family histories behind some things like cancers, is that some people just genetically don't detoxify as efficiently as other people. I mean, we all created differently, and there's some people there's no one genetic test that's called an HLA gene test that you can do. Not really necessary, because most people just understand it. That shows that about 25% of the population doesn't detoxify as well as the rest. They're more challenged to do so. You can have 4 people living in a home and 3 people not feeling any sickness from some things they're exposed to, like toxic mold, let's say, for instance, that they may 3 of the 4 might not be affected at all, and that 4th person might be getting sick from it in various ways, whether it's migraine headaches or fibromyalgia or irritable bowel syndrome can be contributed to by that. So some of these body aches aren't really arthritis related. One person can get the ill effects of toxicity, and a lot of it's because they're just genetically prone. We all kind of have our gifts of genetics that are good, and our challenges. None of us are all perfect. None of us are all bad. But some people, unfortunately, their Achilles heel is their ability to get rid of the poisons of life.
Well, thank you so much. I think this is going to be something that people can really implement and begin to, to feel good about. It always feels good when, and I'm not being lazy, but it does feel good when you can make changes towards your health that don't feel like hard work. And I think just having this in mind, if people know that they're not getting rid of toxins and getting rid of waste, often they can find ways to do that. And it's just, it's really helpful. So thank you.
That's what we're going to do with this series. We're going to really give some practical in the trenches things that people can actually implement tomorrow if they want to. I mean, lifestyles are the way for longevity. I mean, there's these longevity centers that are thinking if you take this supplement, that supplement, take this medicine, whatever, where you can live till you're 100. Well, it's actually all about addressing those root causes of disease. We're going to try to take the mystery away from people to help you understand, and especially the simple ones intervene. I mean, like today, it's not too terribly difficult to avoid the dirty air, the dirty water, the dirty food. It just takes a commitment. It's not particularly difficult to intervene, so you drink lots of clean water, so you pee more and you detoxify that way, or you find mechanisms to get a bowel movement every day, every other day if you can, and not just wait till you feel lousy from it. And then and then a lot of I didn't talk about, but a lot of the food's a whole different topic to cover at some point, but a lot of the healthy foods that you talk about, it helps that liver detoxify. And clean food, like we talked about, is important. But the choices of foods too, a lot of those healthy foods that you know about, it's all about a lot of it's to help support the liver and all of those intricate mechanisms for helping you detoxify. So so that's what we're going to do. We're going to make it really simple for folks, and just I hope today we've taken away the mystery of detox, not just if you're detoxing from drugs or alcohol. We are all detoxing every single day, and whether we realize it or not. And that's really, I believe, one of the key mechanisms to that healthy aging. So it's not all about living long. We all would like to live long, but we really want to live well, so we can be that person who's really enjoying life at 80, 85, 90 and above. It's distinctly possible.
And I think this, with the steps and the practical tools, it's just so empowering. So thank you again for another lovely session. I look forward to the next episode of this series.
Terrific. Yeah, we'll be talking more about the specific biotoxins, those microorganisms that live on all of our bodies. We literally have, you'll hear, 10 times the number of stowaways living in our bodies of the microorganisms, and the impact that they have on toxicity and overall health is huge. And that's what we're going to talk about next time.
Oh, brilliant. Brilliant. I look forward to it. Thanks again. Is there anything you'd like to leave us with before we go, or should we just look forward to next week?
Just commit to yourself, commit to your family, and pick and choose what are these little pearls of wisdom can help you just really enjoy the years you've got ahead of you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Speak soon.